was in recruit class 1 of 90, so we joined on the 22nd of January 1990. It was a very interesting time because my father had left the AFP 6 months before, so I was very much thought of as his son. When I finished recruit training, I went to City Station, which is the station I wanted to go to. It was the station that my father had been the officer in charge of not 6 months before, and it was the place that I thought where all the action was, I suppose, in Canberra. As a child, I grew up around police. Police were the people that my father associated with, that he played all his sport with and things like that. So I grew up around a bunch of people that I really respected and that I enjoyed being around, and some of my closest friends were children of police. And it was Canberra's, even though Canberra's, geographically or population-wise is quite a large place, 20, 30, 40 years ago it wasn't really that big. So everybody knew everybody. And it was a place that I wanted to work. I mean, I spent a few years in the military before and gave myself a good 6 months after that to decide what I really wanted to do for the rest of my life. And having seen the enjoyment that my father derived out of his work and the relationships and the friendships that he built up over the years, I thought, well, I'll give that a try. And really, I've never doubted my career choice from the second I joined. I started off in general duties, and after a couple of years, I went to the city beat team. So there were some subtle differences between what goes on in the city now and what goes on had have gone on in those days. Coming off, it was the late 80s, early 90s. The way police did things was a little bit different. We weren't so computer-based, a lot of our stuff, and it involved more writing things down, typing things. I mean, when I joined, we still hand-typed criminal offence reports with 7 copies and things like that. As well as my time within the uniform and the investigative parts of ACT policing, I spent 10 years in the tactical teams here with the special operations team and then with the police negotiation team. So I've been involved in a lot of crisis management style work. Very early in the piece, there was the ADEX demonstrations back in the end of 1991, I think it was, and that was at the Canberra Showground, which was at that stage some of the more violent demonstrations ever seen in Australia. And that was a challenging and difficult time to work. I mean, we spent long hours there, being confronted, 22, 23 hours a day, but it still was fun. But that's a memorable time. Back in 1993 was my first, I'd just completed my basic special operations training the week before. And so the Jolimont Centre siege began very slowly. And I was at work, and I think I was working in the court cells at City Station that day. And I actually looked outside City Station. I could see smoke coming from the area of the Jolimont Centre. I asked somebody what was going on there, and then there was a bit of radio traffic, and then at some stage they eventually asked for every member of the tactical team that was available to get out there. So myself, having just been fresh off the course, thought, well, I wouldn't probably play much of a role here, maybe a bit of a support role, but I'll go down and help. And I was thrown a uniform and a gas mask and a shotgun, and was told to go and do my thing. So we went into an environment where there was an active shooter at the time who was shooting back out at us, who eventually took his own life, but at the time we didn't know that was going on. So it was a bit of a surreal experience to be clearing a building that was entirely filled with smoke and fire, and not really knowing where the offender was. The negotiation, my involvement there was taking me around the world. I've just returned from 2 weeks on Christmas Island assisting the people with Operation Duval. I was right at the forefront of the Christmas Island riots at the start of last year. There's been so many things that have stood out. There's been good times, there's been bad times, there's been times when friends that we've worked with have taken their own lives, friends that we've worked with have been hurt, friends that we've worked with have lost their jobs. But there's no particular incident in ACT policing that stands out. There's a number, but my fondest memory of ACT policing is the good times that I've had throughout my time there, and I know